Hi students, today we come with a new topic, but it is a continuation of our previous discussion on discourse and discourse analysis, Foucauldian concept of discourse, and now our topic is national identity and nationalist discourse. National identity is a concept that is built around the idea of a nation state. First point, we have to define what is a nation and what is a nation state. Nation, that is sometimes based on ethnicity, religion, or some ideological bondage or something. Slav nationalism, then again Christian nationalism, Islamic nationalism. So the nation, that is a form that is based on certain ideological, ethnical, or other issues. But at the same time, nation state, that is based on governmentality, administration, political system, or something. So India is a nation state. Germany is a nation state. Slavism, that is nation. So the idea of national identity, that is based on the idea of nation state. There is a definition provided by Barker and Kalasinghi. A nation state refers to the political and administrative apparatus that has a claim of sovereignty over a space or territory. Galinsky and Barker defines nation state based on political and administrative apparatus as the present state have. That means sovereignty over a space or territory. That is the definition provided by Barker and Galasingi. Wadak, who defines the idea of nation state, that the concept of identity in general and national identity in particular is context dependent and dynamic. He argued that the idea of nation state, that is context based, the idea that is formed. നമ്മൾ പറയുന്ന ഒരു പ്രത്യേക പശ്ചാത്തലത്തിൽ രൂപം കൊള്ളുന്നതാണ് ഈ നേഷൻ സ്റ്റേറ്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരാശയം. Thus, there are different concepts of national identity. There is no only one concept of identity. One concept that we means political identity, another concept that is the geographical identity, ethnical identity. So Wedak argued that the idea or national identity, formation of the national identity, that is based on context dependent, and there are different concepts of national identity. ഒരു പ്രത്യേക ഒരു രാഷ്ട്രീയ വ്യവസ്ഥയോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു പ്രത്യേക പ്രദേശത്തിന്റെ മേലെയുള്ള ഡോമിനേഷനോ മാത്രം രാഷ്ട്രീയപരമായ രീതിയിൽ കാണുന്നതല്ല, മറിച്ച് വ്യത്യസ്തമായ രീതിയിൽ നാഷണൽ ഐഡന്റിറ്റി ഫോം ചെയ്യാനുള്ള സാധ്യതയുണ്ട്. ആൻഡ് ദിസ് ഡിപ്പെൻഡ് ഓൺ ദി സൊസൈറ്റി ഓർ നേഷൻ കൺസേൺഡ്. Every nation state discursively constructs its own identity, although such identities are malleable, fragile, and frequently ambivalent and diffuse. So, discourse occurs in a society, discourse in a time that create the national identity or nation state. For example, Nazi party Nazi movement that create a particular debate on the Aryan problem, ethnical issues or something. So discourse that create nation states, discourse that construct the nation states. Discourse we already identify discussions, debates, confrontations, cohesions, communication, all that forms an identity, that is discourse. So this discourse create the national identity. So one way of constructing the national identity, that is geographical. Now at present our national identity that is based on geography. India have a geographical boundary, Pakistan have a geographical boundary, Germany have a geographical boundary, but beyond the geographical boundary, we can see that the Kashmirians, by the religion, by the color of the skin, or otherwise their language. So the Kashmirians have very closely connected with the neighboring state Pakistani people, or Hindi speaking people, or have some connection with the Hindi speaking people of other nations. But in spite of these differences, geography put a boundary. Geography put a boundary. Kerala people by nature have some similarity or some proximity with the people belongs to Singapore or other areas. Geography by the way of thinking or the identity or something, but geographically there is a boundary between different nations. So geography now set as a boundary for dividing the nations, and being delineated by boundaries separating different countries. At the same time, there are certain other identities along with the geographical identities. There are certain other identities that form the spirit of nation or national identity, that may be ethnic identity, as we speak in the case of the Slav nationalism, Germanic nationalism, then again Russian nationalism or something. For example, a certain ethnic group may be discursively considered a legitimate nation of a particular geographical country. Within a geographical boundary, ethnic nationality may be created by a certain group within the country. Within the country, a new nation, that means ethnic nationality that may be formed. രാജ്യത്തിനുള്ളിൽ തന്നെ ഒരു പൊളിറ്റിക്കൽ ആയിട്ടുള്ള അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പ്രത്യേക ജോഗ്രഫിക്കൽ ബൗണ്ടറി ഉള്ള ഒരു രാജ്യത്തിനുള്ളിൽ തന്നെ ഒരു ലെജിറ്റിമേറ്റ് നേഷൻ ഫോം ചെയ്യാനുള്ള സാധ്യതയുണ്ട്. എത്തനിക് ബോണ്ടേജ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു നേഷൻ ഐഡന്റിറ്റി ഫോം ചെയ്യാനുള്ള സാധ്യത നമുക്ക് കാണാൻ വേണ്ടി പറ്റും. Wadak argued that identify a number of assumptions which inform their conceptualization of the nationalist discourse, national identities. First, nations are imagined communities. Nations emerged in the form of communities or imagined communities. That is a part we have to discuss later. That is an area that demands a separate study. We have to explain this imagined communities at that point, but we shortly make an argument supporting Wadak that First Nations are imagined communities which nationalized political subjects perceive as discrete entities. Secondly, national identities are special forms of social identities which are produced, reproduced, transformed through discourse. So it may be emerged as a social identities also, along with the political identities. Social identities also create nationality or national identity. Third, national identity involves a complex similar perceptual schemata, emotional dispositions and attitudes, and of similar behavioral conventions which bearers of this national identity share collectively, which they have internalized through socialization. Emotions, emotionally bounded. emotion connected with religion, emotion connected with language, emotion connected with ethnicity. Some of the group have same attitudes, but at the same time they belongs to different countries geographically they belong to different countries, but they have same attitudes and same behavioral conventions, but unfortunately they belongs to different countries as per geographical boundaries. So the national identity that may be created based on the emotional dispositions, attitudes, behavior conventions, that all creates the national identities. And this behavior, these attitudes, these perceptions that may be shared, through communication, that may be shared through other aspects, and all these things are internalized through socialization. So national identity that can be formed, that can be created different way, politically as in the present nation states are doing, and establishment of the sovereignty on a particular geographical space. Geographically, national identity may be formed. Then again, socially, national identity may be formed. At the same time, emotionally, social identities that can be formed. According to Barker and Galasanghi, the symbolic and discursive dimension of the national identity narrates and creates the idea of origin, continuity, and tradition. So this emotional identity or symbolic, so the national identity that may be based on certain images, that may be based on symbols, or otherwise, or an ideology or something. And this symbolic nationality that speak of the idea of origin, continuity, and tradition. Members of a certain national identity also share certain attitudes and emotional dispositions towards those they consider to be outsiders. So, uh, we and they, or we and us and they. So, there are two groups: we and others. We and others. So, the members of a certain national identity share certain attitudes and emotional disposition towards they consider to be outsiders. Therefore, national identity is constructed as unified, being created through symbols. National identity may be created through symbols. For example, Statue of Liberty. Statue of Liberty that became the symbol of USA. So in this way, some airports, or some images, or some symbols, flag, all that create the national identity, and rituals that represent the shared meanings of a nationhood. And coming down to the second part of our discussion, that is nationalist discourse. First upon we make a reference on national identity, and second part we make a study on what actually means nationalist discourse. Nationalist discourse enables the construction of national identity. We already make a reference that national identity is formed on the basis of the nationalist discourse. Discourse, that means debates, discussions, confrontations, communication, everything, sharing, everything that is discourse and that create the national identity. It is the discursive means whereby national identity is produced, reproduced, cemented, and transformed. National discourse is therefore a means of representing shared experience through narratives, symbols, rituals, which are regarded as the core of the national identity. Discourse analysts have examined how nationalist discourse can sometimes be based around the stereotypes which distinguish between us and them. We already familiarize some stereotype. We and they, us and them, we and others. So these are some of the stereotype we already see. Europeans and Indians. So in this way, these are the national discourses and that create the national identity, and such discourses can be employed in order to justify discrimination or exclusion of the out group. Colonization initially used the natural or social sciences, referring to a species, plant, animal, human, populating a new area. The term was taken by Habermas in an analysis of the contemporary capitalism to describe how systems such as economy, the state, and institutions have had an enormous impact on the people's life. So, colonization created various things to populating a new area. Penetration to the new area, they created different identities, natural or social sciences, referring to a species, plant, animal, human, all that is used to penetrate to other area or populating a new area. The term was taken by Habermas in an analysis of contemporary capitalism to describe how systems such as the economy, the state, and institutions have had enormous impact on the people's lives. സാമ്പത്തിക സംവിധാനങ്ങൾ, സ്റ്റേറ്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ആശയങ്ങൾ, സ്ഥാപനങ്ങൾ, ഇതൊക്കെ എങ്ങനെയാണ് ജനങ്ങളുടെ ജീവിതത്തിനെ എങ്ങനെയാണ് ബാധിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളത്. കൊളോണിയലിസം എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ആശയത്തെ നമ്മൾ എങ്ങനെ മാത്രം സ്വാംശീകരിക്കുന്നത്? അത് ഒരു ക്യാപിറ്റലിസ്റ്റ് എക്കണോമിയിലൂടെ ആകാം, അവർ വിഭാവനം ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു സ്റ്റേറ്റിലൂടെയാകാം, അവർ മുന്നോട്ട് വെക്കുന്ന നിയമ സംവിധാനം പോലുള്ള സ്ഥാപനത്തിലൂടെയാകാം. ഇതൊക്കെ ഒരു ജനതയുടെ ജീവിതത്തിന്റെ മേലെ കാര്യമായ സ്വാധീനം ചെലുത്തുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങളാണ്. Fairclough adapts the term to refer to the colonizations in the societal order of discourse, noting the way in which discourses of consumerism and bureaucracy have colonized other discourses types or expanded at their expenses. In writing about the colonization of the advertising, Fairclough notes the dramatic increase in advertising the last 3 decades. So Fairclough പറയുന്നത് അഡ്വർടൈസിംഗ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന സംവിധാനത്തെ എങ്ങനെയാണ് കോളനൈസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. How to colonize the advertising. So every day we see different kinds of advertisements and a product. We have an image on a particular products based on advertisement, not on our experience on that product. ഒരു പ്രൊഡക്റ്റിന്റെ മേലെ നമുക്ക് നമ്മുടെ ഒരു അനുഭവത്തിന്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിലല്ല, നമ്മുടെ ആ ഒരു പ്രൊഡക്റ്റ് ഉപയോഗിച്ചുകൊണ്ടുള്ള നമ്മുടെ അനുഭവത്തിന്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ മാത്രമാകണമെന്നില്ല ആ പ്രൊഡക്റ്റിന്റെ സ്വഭാവ രൂപീകരണം നയിക്കുന്നത്. മറിച്ച് ആ പ്രൊഡക്റ്റിനെ കുറിച്ച് നിരന്തരമായി വരുന്ന അഡ്വർടൈസ്മെന്റ്, ആ ഒരു അഡ്വർടൈസ്മെന്റിനെ എങ്ങനെ കോളനൈസ് ചെയ്യുന്നു, ഒരു അഡ്വർടൈസ്മെന്റിനെ കോളനൈസ് ചെയ്യപ്പെടുന്നു. അപ്പൊ അങ്ങനെ ആ അഡ്വർടൈസ്മെന്റ് ആണ് നമ്മൾ ഒരു പ്രൊഡക്റ്റിനെ പരിചയപ്പെടുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ ആ പ്രൊഡക്റ്റ് നല്ലതാണോ ചീത്തയാണോ എന്ന്, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പിന്നെ നമുക്ക് ഡിമാൻഡ്, ഒരു പ്രൊഡക്റ്റിന്റെ ഡിമാൻഡ് വരുന്നത് ആ പ്രൊഡക്റ്റിന്റെ കോളനൈസേഷൻ പ്രക്രിയയിലൂടെയാണ്. കോളനൈസേഷൻ പ്രക്രിയ നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞു, പല രീതിയിലാണ് കോളനൈസേഷൻ പ്രക്രിയ വരുന്നത്. സാമ്പത്തിക സംവിധാനത്തിലൂടെയാകാം, ഒരു ഐഡിയോളജിയിലൂടെയാകാം. അപ്പോൾ ആ രീതിയിൽ ഒരു പ്രൊഡക്റ്റിനെ നമ്മൾ ആ പ്രൊഡക്റ്റിനോടുള്ള ഒരു ഇമേജ് ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യപ്പെടുന്നത് ആ പ്രൊഡക്റ്റിന്റെ കോളനിവൽക്കരണ പ്രക്രിയയിലൂടെയാണെന്ന് ഫെയർക്ലോ അഭിപ്രായപ്പെടുന്നുണ്ട്. ദി എക്സ്റ്റെന്റ് ടു വിച്ച് ദി പീപ്പിൾ ആർ എക്സ്പോസ്ഡ് ടു അഡ്വർടൈസിംഗ് ഓൺ എ ഡെയിലി ബേസിസ്, ദി പെനിട്രേഷൻ ഓഫ് അഡ്വർടൈസിംഗ് ഇൻ ടു ദി non-economic aspects of the life into the home through television. Further, examples of the colonization of the advertising would involve phenomena such as product placement in films or marketing firms hiring academics to carry out research that will then be cited in the media along with a reference to the company which sponsored the research. So these are some of the references that we have about the national identity and national discourse. So now we have to stop there, and next we have to study with another topic.